yeah, I want to kick off, like I said, with asking about your childhood. Like, just really give me a little like lowdown on it, as much as you're comfortable talking about, of course. But yeah, it's nice to hear where you started.
Oh crap. Well, I grew up and down the East Coast of the United States. I was born in New York, but I've lived in Florida, North Carolina, Massachusetts. So just I've moved up and down a lot. Um, but yeah, I was in New York until I was about 10, and then moved to Florida and spent my formative years there, and then got the hell out of there as soon as I could because the heat is not for me. I prefer the cold in the mountains. So now I
Yes,
live up again.
and when you say New York, you mean the state of New York as opposed to like New York City, right?
Yeah, yeah, the state
Yeah,
of New York, not New York City,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
God.
yeah. Got it, got it. So you moved down to Florida, and it's really swampy and like
Oh yeah.
And where are you now?
I'm in New England.
Okay.
You know, I'm so I moved like almost like ping pong between the North and the South my whole life, you know.
Yeah, and the mountains, what about them draws you to them?
Oh, it's just my place. Some people are beach people, some are mountain people. I've always been more passionate about the mountains and the woods. I have like almost a borderline spiritual connection with nature and the wilderness. I love to be on my own and out in the woods. One of my favorite pastimes has always been hiking with my dogs. So, and now I'm really into bike riding around the river trails near me, and that's been a lot of fun.
So is
Uh,
that mountain biking? Like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
oh that's cool. That's very nice. So yeah, of course that kind of that spirituality obviously comes, connection with the wilderness comes out in a lot of your writing. And what were you like as a child? Were you a happy child?
Uh, well, I don't want to get into childhood miseries,
No, you don't have to. You don't have to.
but I no, I was always a very uh I don't know. I My parents always said that I was the easy kid because of the family because I would just go into my room and play by myself and be fine. Whereas other kids would just go crazy and run around and have to be watched. I was always into books and writing and drawing and being by myself, and that's kind of continued um, into my adult life. You know, I prefer a lot of I prefer solitude. I think it's important for a writer to have it.
Mm.
So yeah, so as a kid, I was kind of like that, but then as I got older, I became more extroverted. You know, in my teen years and
Yeah.
chasing girls and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I was very much the boy from the wrong side of the tracks. You know, like the bad kid. But but yeah, you know, I survived it all.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, so did you, when you kind of, yeah, when you became a bit more of a wild child in your teen years, were you still reading and writing?
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, definitely. Always been a passion of mine, reading, writing. Ever since I was a little kid, 10 years old, I was writing horror stories, little stories about monsters and
All right.
killer robots and shit like that. And by the time I was 16, that's when I really knew I wanted to pursue it as a career and that I wanted to be a writer. I was about 15 or 16 when I really became determined for that. I remember when I was younger, I was very like I wanted to be like an artist and draw and do comic books and stuff. And then as I got a little older, I gravitated more towards the writing. And I've always been a creative person. I've done music and
Yeah.
drawing things like that. But um, some at some point in my 20s, I stopped doing the music and all that other stuff because I wanted to put all my focus into the writing. That's what was I was the most passionate about. That's what I thought I was my biggest strength. And so I didn't want to be a jack of all trades, one of these people that spreads themselves too thin and tries to do everything. It's rather than half-ass two things. I just wanted to whole-ass one thing, you know?
That's quite a kind of it's a kind of a strange amount of focus to have at quite a young age, don't you think? Like, because a lot of people, like you said, and especially I'm picking up on like if you're juggling being a teenager, but then also having this kind of I guess like yeah, this you're protecting your solitude as well, reading and writing, and then having that focus of going, this is what I want to do. I think maybe some people like are light upon what they want to do at 16, but that definitely
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they stick with that. So, what do you think was the thing that kind of allowed you to be able to cling on to that dream and kind of follow through with it?
I was just so passionate about it,
Yeah,
and remain so. I love fiction, and I love horror fiction in particular. I grew up watching movies a lot. I think, movies raised
yeah,
me more than people in my life did
yeah.
in a lot of ways. As a Gen X latchkey kid, I learned a lot from movies and TV, unfortunately. But I was so passionate about all of that stuff, always was, and so yeah, even in the years where a lot of people were partying, my 20s and things like that, I still did, but not nearly what most people do at that age. I
Yeah.
was more focused on perfecting my craft, and I preferred to stay at home and read, rather than go out and get drunk at clubs and things like that. So
What did your friends think about that? Like, did they see you as being like this kind of like a bit weird, or was it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I was always the weird guy
Oh,
growing
yeah.
up, like the guy who always had his nose buried in books. But because like when I was a teenager, I was really into heavy metal, and I hung out with
Yeah,
like these heavy metal guys, and we would get stoned and get drunk and stuff.
yeah.
Then like I would also at the same time be working on a novel when I was 17 years old, and so that was weird to
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
And I certainly had a lot of people being like, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time with that. That's
Oh,
fucking lame or whatever." And but all those people, they didn't end up becoming a full
no.
time, and I did.
I think it can be quite triggering for young people when they see someone being very focused and dedicated on something because it makes them
Right,
look at themselves and go, instead of going, oh, maybe I could dedicate myself to something, they go,
right.
yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be coming and getting stoned with us. And
That's
also,
exactly right.
are you still a bit of a metal head? Do you like metal?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, very much so.
yeah,
Oh yeah. I grew up in Florida during like the early '90s death metal
yeah.
explosion.
One of my favorite scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in that scene,
Oh,
man.
sick.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Florida death metal scene in the early '90s was huge. It was
yeah,
like the hub of American death metal.
yeah.
So I was really into all of that stuff. I saw a lot of great bands, a lot of the classic death metal bands like Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Carcass, Napalm Death, and so
Wow.
on. Yeah, I
Wow.
saw them all. Saw them all,
That's mad.
and mostly in like little dive bars too. That's
Oh,
the best part.
that's the dream.
Yeah, yeah, it
That
was
is,
great. It was great. But I will admit, I don't listen to that stuff as much
mm,
now.
yeah.
I really like it's weird. As I've gotten older, I've gone back to the stuff from like when I was first discovering my own music, when I was like, 11 or 12 years old. And the metal of that time was like the hair metal stuff. It was like Skid Row
Yeah.
and and Wasp, bands like that. And I really enjoy listening to those bands now. I really enjoy the 80s metal stuff.
Yeah.
But there are times when I'll put on Carcass, for old time's sake. And I do love doom metal. I listen to a lot of doom
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but most of my metal now, it's more like um, Dio and
Yeah.
Sabbath and things like that, rather than the full-on
No.
roaring death metal of Cannibal Corpse or something.
Definitely. And do you agree with me that like there's something about just like the horror community with the metal community, there's this level of acceptance where there might be this quite spiky or kind of slightly scary outer shell, it seems to other people. But really, if you're part of it, there
Yeah.
couldn't be really more of a loving or an accepting group of people on the whole. Like it's they have similarities, don't they?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true, and that goes for like the horror community as well. Fans of horror films and horror fiction.
Yeah.
Uh, People on the outside will think because we're into it that we must be some kind of
Freak.
Henry Lee Lucas, Ed
Yeah.
Gein sicko. When really, we're just regular people who just happen to like this as entertainment. Like I try to. It's frustrating as a writer of this kind of material too,
Mm,
where people read one of my books like Full Brutal or something and think that I must be some kind of maniac who wants
yeah.
to eat people. And I'm like, no. And I've said this before to people. I'm like, I'm no more of a cannibal maniac than Stephen King is a clown living in a sewer. Like it's fiction. It's not real.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
some people can't make that. They just have cognitive dissonance about that. Uh,
Mm,
but yeah, anyway, to return to your point, yes,
yeah.
I do think that with the metal scene and the horror scene, there's plenty of wonderful people in those communities. But I will say I did meet some metalhead meatheads that
Oh,
I had in the mosh pits over the
oh
years
yeah,
that
yeah.
that were not the friendliest people.
No, no, no. Of course not. There are bad apples in all of them. And so tell
Right.
me, as you were kind of okay, well, when did you complete your first piece of writing where you wrote the end and you were like, okay,
Oh, I mean, 10 years old, but like I wrote short stories that
Yeah,
were
yeah,
just, longhand, a couple of pages.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do remember the most predominant one is I was about 14 and I had a typewriter. This is how old I am.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, no,
like,
no. I've had a typewriter. I got one for my grandmother. I love them. I think that
yeah.
kind of tick 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 is great. But
So
yeah,
I had a typewriter and I wrote out what I considered a novel, which was probably more of a novella. It was maybe 10,000 words or something. But I wrote this vampire novella, and I was really proud of that because I typed it up and everything, filled with errors and misspellings and just total garbage. It's funny, sometimes I'll tell these stories and people be like, "Oh, I would love to see you release those." I'm like, "No, God, no." Like the stuff I wrote when I was 14 is just garbage. Like everyone's is. Like we
yeah.
all need to continue to grow, and we need to write bad books, and you need to write many, many bad books before you can write a good one.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for life in a way, isn't it? I mean, you've got to do it, and you've got to fail.
Yeah.
Fail a few times. I was going to ask, do you ever like cannibalize your old work? Do you ever like steal ideas and stuff from it?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite short stories that I wrote, it's called Dead End, and
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that story for a variety of reasons. But it was first published, I think, in 2015, and I remember it was my first pro-paying publication, so I got paid like a good amount of money for it. So that
Mm.
was huge to me. But the funny thing is that I was in my 30s when that story got published, but the concept of the story, the idea for it, goes back to when I was like 16 or 17.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was a story that I wrote and rewrote probably 10, 15
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
times, because I knew the concept was good.
That's the thing. And you didn't, but you maybe didn't have that kind of like experience and technical skill to kind of
Right,
pull it off. Yeah, I get it. So
right, right.
so so were you before that story? Let's say that seminal moment for you, like in your 20s, you were still writing, right? And you were still pursuing a kind of the dream of like achieving your dreams. What
Right.
at what point did it start to feel serious? Like I'm actually going to do this. I'm achieving the dream that I had when I was 16.
Well, it was a long time coming. It really was. Things have changed a lot now in
Yeah.
horror, particularly in indie publishing.
Mm,
It's a lot easier for people to just self-publish or get published
yeah.
in a small press. These things didn't exist when I was starting out in my 20s. So there was a lot of rejection
Mm,
letters and a lot of publishers turning me down, and a lot of it, I still save some of these because a lot of them said that my writing was good, but that the material was too grotesque, too transgressive, too nihilistic,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I remember going through a period in my 20s where I was like, do I have to be more conventional? Do I have to write these boring horror novels that put me to sleep
Yeah.
in order to get published? But I think it was in my 30s when I started to get short stories accepted in small presses here and there, making just $20 a story,
Yeah.
not
You know.
anything. But yeah, everybody starts somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also important to get that validation as well, and
Right.
especially when you're thinking, is my voice wanted? Like,
Right.
if you're feeling, and I'm sure this is true of a lot of people in publishing, when they're trying to get into publishing or get an agent, is that you kind of think, I need to write something that the agent or the publisher will want because but I think what's interesting about horror is actually the market is so diverse, and they're obviously, as you're a testament to this, and so are many other writers, that that people want the more extreme stuff.
Yeah.
There's an appetite for it, and I'm sure you doubted whether that would be appropriate path for you to go
Oh
down.
yeah, yeah. Thank goodness I came along the works of Jack Ketchum and Edward
Yeah,
Lee and
yeah,
read those and was like, oh shit, you can get away with this. You
yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
do this stuff. And that was a game changer for me reading those guys and realizing that. But yeah, even when it comes to the extreme, certainly I'm very much known for my extreme horror stuff. But I've always written that and also written other stuff. I've
Yeah,
always had an interest in crime fiction and dramatic works. My material really runs the gamut.
yeah.
Um, but I never want to hold back with horror
No.
because horror by definition should shock and offend and disgust and fucking scare people, creep
Mm,
people out. So I never wanted to hold anything back, and I haven't, and it's worked for me because, like you said, there is a market for it out there.
mm,
It may not be conventional,
yeah.
but there's a lot of people out there who
Yeah.
want the more intense, hardcore, brutal horror. And we see that with like the success of the Terrifier movies, for example,
Totally.
where those are just these underground films that have managed to become enormously popular.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's because they're so intense and violent and crazy. And people gravitate to it because people of horror are kind of sick of these
Yeah.
slow burn ghost stories where no one dies, and it's just like a bump in the night, scary sound, and they're boring. They're
Yeah.
fucking boring.
Jump scares. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, jump scares and
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's a spooky spirit in a house, but no one actually gets killed. They just get scared. Like I remember seeing that movie It Follows, and it was a good
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
very good concept, but the creature it's aptly named because it follows them and they run away. It follows them and it doesn't fucking kill anybody, and it's so frustrating. I'm like, this is the most ineffective
Yeah.
monster you could possibly have.
Totally. And I think that horror, its job is also to ask questions that or go to places that people are, as you said, afraid to go to. And that opens up a really interesting doorway, because once you start talking about taboos and things which generally society don't like talking about,
Right,
it actually makes people feel less alone, I think, when you kind of,
right.
because a lot of your work, I mean, yes, I wouldn't describe it as, I mean, yeah, you said extreme and brutal, but I wouldn't describe it necessarily as like gratuitous. Well, sometimes it is, but I think that there is always this sense of there's a message behind it, and obviously it
Yes.
changes and there are themes. And like your
Thank
most recent book, this is obviously about prison, which is, in a way, I mean, and for me, it's a huge fear of mine. I mean, I don't
you.
think
Yeah,
I'm in danger of going to prison, but like the idea of that
yeah,
is
yeah.
very scary. Wanted to know about your feelings about prison.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a scary concept. The complete loss of freedom,
Yeah,
and not to mention the danger of being around other criminals, many of which will be much worse than you,
yeah,
uh, no matter what you've done.
no,
So yeah, it's a terrifying concept. And what happened to me was a few years ago, I had read an article written by a reporter who went undercover as a CO, as a corrections
yeah,
officer. And the stuff he talked about in that article was crazy to me. And then I had also saw something or read something about America's for-profit prison system,
of course,
and
yeah,
then yeah, and then I got into researching that and how horrific that is to me. And so I said to myself, there's definitely a book in this. But there'd been so many prison movies over the years and so many prison shows, Orange is the New Black and Shawshank Redemption and
yeah,
all
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So I was like, well, I want to do something totally different. So this is the main character is actually a corrections officer,
yeah,
and how because we all know how prison changes a person behind bars, but how
yeah,
does prison change the people who have to be the guards? Because it does. It really has a
mm,
profound effect on people and makes them more aggressive and makes in their everyday life.
yeah, of course,
It creates PTSD at the same level that like
mm,
going to war does.
yeah,
Because you're at this job every day, sometimes
mm,
working 10 hours a day, constantly have to watch your back, constantly have to not back down to people who are trying to give you shit.
mm,
So yeah, it inspired me to write this book, and it's about a male CO in a women's prison.
mm,
But the women's prison is it's a fictionalized place,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
a for-profit prison, and it's also the prison for the most extreme female offenders in the country. So it's like the worst of the worst.
I would expect
Because
nothing less. Yeah,
thank you. Yes, because most women's prisons are not nearly as high security or as dangerous as a men's prison is,
yeah,
because men are just worse. When it
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
violence, men are just worse.
yeah,
So I was like, well, I want this to be a hardcore story, though. So I decided to make this prison where they sent all the murderers and the child killers and the maniac women.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah,
get a like a welcome to Oz bitch kind of experience,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but in a female prison setting.
No,
So
I get it. It's a melting pot of, yeah, just the worst types of people, and they happen to be women. And I think that is also, there's that like dehumanizing element that prison guards will go through as well, where you have to kind of see people as threats, and you have to see them as that. You
right,
can't see them as humans because they'll manipulate you, because obviously they're very manipulative
right.
people who are
That's
criminals.
that's a lot what the book is about, is
Yeah,
how it breaks down a person's mentality. The CO in the story, Liam, he starts off and he's actually just trying to be a decent guy to the prisoners and just try to get along. But as he goes on and he just continues to take more and more abuse from them and
Yeah.
lies, it slowly changes and hardens him.
Mm.
And that's like you mentioned, horror having a message.
Mm.
That's the overall message of
Yeah.
the book is look what prison does to people, even when they're not the prisoner.
Yeah.
Just being in a prison every day makes people crazy. Like the
Mm.
character, he begins because he's always around women and they're always these convicts. He begins to starts to become very distrusting of women just
Yeah.
in his everyday life because it has that kind of effect on you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would be the worst prison guard ever. I'd be a massive pushover. I'd fail immediately. Like I'm too wet for that. But no, it's an amazing concept, and I mean, just like I said, that like prison, I think actually, just in even metaphorically, that clipping of the wings and the kind of loss of control for you is that. Do you like channel your fears actively into your writing, or does it kind of just like you said that you read an article and maybe you watched a documentary and you were like, oh, fuck, this is crazy. Do you
Yeah.
generally start with this is something which scares me as a concept and I'm going to write something about it? Like, is it a conscious thing?
Yeah. It could be something that scares me or something that intrigues me that I
Yeah.
find interesting or something that's just fucked up, Like I recently watched this documentary on Netflix called The Man with a Thousand Children.
Yeah. Do you know what? My cousin made that.
No shit.
Yeah, my cousin
Cousin
made
made
that.
that?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was fantastic. I
yeah.
thought it was one of the best documentaries I've
Crazy.
seen in a long
It's
time.
crazy.
Easy story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where I'll see something like that and I'm like, there's a book there. There's a
Yeah.
story there. Of course, I'm not going to write it because they made this
It's
documentary and
done.
like it's done. But
Yeah.
like I watched that and I thought I wish I had come up with that as a story because it
Totally,
was so
totally.
crazy and such a bizarre thing. So I'll see something like that or I'll read something in the news or something and it'll trigger a thought. And like with the prison thing, I read that one article and then from there it sparked my interest in it. So I watched documentaries, I read books by former prisoners, books by former COs,
Hmm.
and researched it and learned a lot about it because I'm one of those guys who does like a deep dive on anything that
Yeah.
I'm interested in. I get obsessed with it for a couple of months and just bury myself in it.
Hmm.
Um, and so that anyway, that's where that book came from, and that's how a lot of ideas.
Are
Uh,
you, yeah, are you a kind of naturally obsessive person then? Like, as in, do you kind of really
yes,
just, you can't help but just be
yep,
overwhelmed by how much you're interested in something?
yep. That's exactly what happens to me, and it happens all the time to the point where it's like
Yeah.
ruined relationships.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
like I've been with like a woman I've lived with or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm obsessed with this one thing now, and it's all I'm going to talk about. It's all I want to watch. It's all I want to read. I'm going to bring it up constantly until you're going to fucking hate me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So I can't help it. I can't
No, I
help
know.
it.
And when you were, so let's say if you were away from writing, do you feel like almost uncomfortable with the idea of not being able to get it out? Like,
Oh yeah, I have to get it out.
yeah,
Yeah, I always carry like even in like all around the house, I have these little notebooks
yeah,
just
yeah,
in case
yeah,
I have an idea for something. I want to make sure I have it on hand.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I write even when I'm away. But at the same time, I will take
yeah,
breaks from writing to enjoy life. And just
yes.
like this past week, I did a lot of that because it was my birthday this past week.
Oh, yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time outside and just did stuff with friends and just enjoyed life and stepped away from the writing because the writing for me is also there's also work outside of the writing. It's promoting the books and
Yeah, of
getting
course.
all that stuff, all the business side of it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the writing itself is a passion. It's something that I did for decades without an audience, without getting paid.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just lucky now that I can share this with
Hmm.
all my fans out there who I'm so grateful for
Yeah, yeah.
because I would be doing this even if no one was reading it.
Let's talk about then that kind of experience because I would say you, in terms of the, I guess people would think of you as someone who really did it themselves. Like, you've obviously been writing for a very long time, and yeah, you
Yeah.
you must have gone through so many periods where you thought maybe not giving up because you love it so much, but you might have thought maybe it's not going to happen. Like
Yeah,
when you
I never gave up. I never
no,
considered giving up.
okay,
Yeah.
fine, but maybe would have felt maybe a little bit like you said, oh, do I need to change this tactic or do this? Like,
Yeah, you do have doubts
yeah,
and
doubts, but
regrets
not.
like, ah, fuck, I still haven't made it. Yeah, you're
No, no,
absolutely right about that. But yeah,
never.
never. Yeah.
Well, I don't think if you did, yeah, you can't get to where you are. I think if you do kind of consider giving up, but like this talk. Tell me about like the spirit of independence, and I presume you're someone. You come across to me as someone, even though maybe you do work with indie presses or you're published by a variety of people and all that. Like, talk about like how what it's like to like you own your own work, right? Do you own the rights to like your big stuff?
Yes,
Yeah. So it's like,
yes, yes.
how important is that to you to
Oh, very.
have control?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is very important. And yeah, that's one of the reasons that I do publish through my own line, that Bedroom Books, which myself and Aaron Beauregard and Daniel Volpe started the line, is because we wanted to have that complete creative control.
Yeah.
And we had enough of an audience base, particularly together,
Yeah.
to just do it ourselves and not have to deal with any middleman and not have to share any of the proceeds, so, get all the profits to ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very much a do-it-yourself kind of guy, but I have had there has been benefits for working with some of the presses I've worked with,
Yeah.
big or small. There's definitely benefits to that, but sometimes there's drawbacks. It all depends on the publisher. I've worked with some really good ones like Grindhouse Press, and then I've
Yeah.
worked with some shitty ones that I've
Yeah.
ended up pulling my books from and will never do business with
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
I won't name them here,
Yeah. Of
but
course. Yeah.
so
Yeah, no, I get that. But it's like, but I guess there's the thing about, I think, because for me with horror, like it isn't just one thing. There's so many different genres and subgenres and all of these kind of things. And it's a big audience. It's probably one of those audiences as well, which is overlooked in the sense that commercially they will buy horror stuff, like as in horror movies, horror books. If you're into it, like that's what you're going to buy. So there is a big market. And what do you think about the fact that really it's kind of, I think, being underestimated or will be underestimated by kind of the big mainstream kind of houses? Like, would you ever consider giving up some creative control to work with someone like huge, like one of the big four or something?
oh yeah, yeah, that'd be a
Yeah.
different situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to, when you're working with a publisher and other creatives, you have to have some flexibility, and
Yeah.
I've done that in the past, and sometimes that's really worked out for the best. Sometimes people, an editor I'm working with or something has pointed something out, and I've changed it based on their suggestion, and then later was like, wow, that was a great call. Like they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
important to be open to that constructive criticism
Yeah.
from people that you respect and people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Uh, because we all make mistakes, and it's good to have another set of eyes or three or four sets of eyes. Before I release a book, I usually have a couple of beta readers go over it for me, and then I have an editor go over it for me, because I want that feedback before I release it to the masses.
Totally. And tell me about was your the first time you felt like that rush of like, oh my God, I am really like it's really happening. I have got a wide readership. Was that Gone to See the Riverman? Was that like a big moment, or was there a moment before that where you kind of felt?
Yeah, I mean there were almost like steps up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Full Brutal came out before that, and
Yeah.
that's my second most popular book. But that came out, and I won my first like literary award for that book. I won the Splatterpunk
Yep.
award for this novel. That was in like 2019, and so that was big for me. And then I just realized I was starting to
Mm,
garner more fans. But then Riverman came out, and that just exploded everywhere. And that's the book that made it possible for me to quit my day job and write full time. So yeah, the popularity of that book and that series was definitely a career changing moment. And
yeah.
over the past 5 years, I've seen my fan base skyrocket,
Mm.
and I couldn't be more appreciative. I'm so glad that people like what I'm doing.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before that when you were younger, like self-publishing, not exactly possible now, obviously. Like I always say that like I don't like Amazon, but Kindle and like Kindle Unlimited and
Yeah,
KDP is like one of the greatest innovations like in publishing ever because
yeah,
it so many people it gives control to so many people. And you said like cutting in that middleman, whether it's an agent or a publisher, it takes a lot of money. And you this at the end of the day, this is going to be passive income for you for like hopefully the rest of your life. So it's like
right.
it's great to have that level of control.
It is. It
You know,
is.
and yeah, I was just wondering, like, in terms of like when you were coming up, did you also have the impression that being self-published was a negative thing? Because that's the perception.
Oh yeah, that was at the time, that was the perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the 90s and early 2000s, you could self-publish, but it was what was called a vanity
Vanity
press,
press, yeah, yeah.
back then. And because like you could self-publish it, but you didn't really have any platform. You didn't have anywhere to sell it.
Yeah.
So you would just have to sell it out of the trunk of your car, you
Yeah.
know?
Did you ever do that?
Well, yeah, in a way. I remember when I was in my late teens, my buddy Tom and I, who's always been in my corner when it comes to my writing,
Amazing.
he and I, we like made like chapbooks, these like small books out
Yeah.
of some of my stuff. And I would go to like open mic nights and do readings and just try to give them to people or sell them to people. And we actually made them at Kinko's, which was maybe before your time. I'm not sure how old you are,
I know what
but
it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, yeah, it was kind of like an Office Depot
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of place, Staples,
yeah.
but it was made just for printing stuff up. And of
Yeah.
course, the world has moved on technologically from that, and they're long gone. But we would print up these chapbooks where we could bind it and everything, and sell them or hand them out.
So you were hustling, and you
Oh
kind
yeah,
of, because I think, I don't use hustling as obviously as a bad word. Like, I think it's totally necessary. You kind of need
oh it
to.
is, yeah, yeah. You can't just It doesn't matter how good your book is.
Yeah,
You could write the next To
yeah,
Kill a Mockingbird. Like you could write an incredible book, but if people don't know about it, it's not going to do anything. You can't just sit back and wait for people to come to you. You have to get your face out there, do
mm,
conventions, be online, do all the social media shit. I don't personally enjoy social media that much, but
yeah.
I always try to participate in it because it's why wouldn't you? It's free advertising.
It
It's
is.
There's a whole audience of people out there waiting for content. So
Totally. And I'm sure that, like, TikTok, for example, has probably helped you a lot in terms of like
yeah,
spreading that virality. Because for me, it's like word of mouth is like the lifeblood of books. Like,
yeah,
it's only when people recommend and you keep, I think I probably need to see a book 3 times before it's like in my head and then I'm like
right.
considering it. And let's be honest, like, I know some people are freaks and they read like 2,000 books a year or something, but most people, it's a competitive thing to be the book that someone reads in a year. And
Sure, sure.
so it is like, as much as, like, I mean, you don't need to do much marketing personally, because I think people do the marketing for you. You've got enough fans, but I see you on there every now and then. You
Oh yeah, no, I still jump on there.
Yeah,
I'm just not as active as say like Aaron Burgard or somebody
he
like
loves
that.
it.
Yeah, I'm not as active. But and that's not. I mean, that's not nothing to not trying to talk him down or anything like
No, no,
that.
no, no.
He has enormous success doing it,
Yeah,
uh, and I do well with it too. I just don't do it as much. I
yeah.
probably should do it more, but
You don't
yeah,
need to. I don't think you need to. There's people who work like a billion times harder than you who are never going to touch where you've reached. So I think you're fine. And I think it's also that thing of like, I don't like, I mean, there's some people who are very charismatic. Like Aaron he's a charismatic guy, but there's a lot of authors.
he's an asshole though.
Yeah,
Total.
but like that, people like that. You know what I mean? Like people
I
like,
say that with love. He's one of my best friends.
no, I
Just,
know, I know.
I don't want his fans attacking me, hearing me call him an
No,
asshole.
they
But
wouldn't.
he's an asshole.
No, I know, but but as in, I think there are sometimes when authors they promoting your book can actually be harmful. I think sometimes I think it
It
comes
can, yeah.
across as a little bit like, buy my book, and it's like,
Yeah, you don't want it. That's exactly what you don't want.
yeah,
You don't want to just all your content to be buy my book, buy my book. You have to give them jokes and give them fun and
yeah,
talk about. One of the things I do is I'll go on and I'll talk about books that I love, other people's
exactly,
books.
yeah.
That's a great thing to do too. So yeah, you want to give people content that isn't just self-promotion.
Yeah, because it's about ultimately, I think, and I would describe, I think horror and light metal, one of the few kind of groups of people that I would be able to label a community. And I think that community is ultimately about giving back. The topics that horror touch on, some people on the outside, I think, do view them as being gratuitous and all these things. Basically, they don't understand them. But there's a lot of people who feel very seen when they read horror, and they use it to kind of soothe themselves, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, at least that's what I do. And I'm sure as a writer yourself, like, there is always going to be an element of like, there's a therapy to writing and kind of exercising your own demons and stuff. And I was just wondering, like, how you feel about the fact that people don't understand necessarily, you mentioned it before, don't understand what you're trying to do, like, and see you maybe as being a kind of a bit of a freak, like, I mean, I'm imagining, because you wouldn't have got this far if you had that, you have thick skin and you kind of just like, I'm going to do what I want and you go fuck yourself, basically. But
Yeah, that's
how
100% accurate.
and has that always been the case? Have you always kind of felt that kind of bulletproof, like, I'm just going to be authentic to what I want to do, And
Yeah, I've always been authentic to what I want to do, and writing what the story calls for.
yeah,
I mentioned earlier that I do extreme horror, but I also do other stuff.
yeah,
And sometimes people read one of my crime fiction books or something, and they'll expect more blood and guts and carnage. But to me, that particular story didn't call for that.
yeah,
So it all depends on the story and itself. But yeah, there's going to be people out there that don't understand your stuff when you're a writer, and but to me, it's not my responsibility to explain it all to them. If they don't like it, they don't have to read it. So it's fine.
yeah.
I write for the people of a like mind, the people who do enjoy that stuff, and it's not for everybody, and I accept that. But if they're gonna call me a freak and call me names and things like that, they can all get fucked.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly. I don't take criticism from people that I wouldn't go to for advice. So
Very
they can all suck my dick.
No, I think that's totally fair because I think that it's probably I think people get a bit, let's say, for example, extreme horror is definitely because let's say splatterpunk is different from extreme horror now because I
It
know
is. It is.
there is an extreme. Would you describe yourself as splatterpunk or extreme horror? Like, is it a mixture of the two?
Yeah, well, for a long time, I myself had it wrong.
Yeah,
I think because the word splatter is in
yeah,
there.
yeah,
I thought splatterpunk was the stuff that was just gross for the sake of being
yeah,
gross and almost funny and everything. And that extreme horror was the dark, transgressive stuff.
yeah,
So I was wrong. It's actually the opposite. And I
yeah,
know this because the people who invented the genre have corrected me.
yeah. Have they?
So yeah, splatterpunk is extreme horror that has a point, that has a message, that has that can have a good, strong story that just happens to have
Yeah,
some graphic gore or some taboo subject that
yeah,
it covers. Um, whereas extreme horror is just I don't want to say gore for the sake of gore, but it's more over the top grossness. It's more
yeah,
designed to make you go,
yeah,
uh, but it could still be great stories. Edward Lee wrote a lot of that. Aaron Beauregard writes a lot in that genre, and I've done it myself with Toxic Love or
yeah,
Body Art, which has some really extreme stuff that to me is intended to be funny. Because whenever I see or read an excessively gory, over the top,
yeah.
gross scene in movies or in books, I start to laugh when
But
I
yeah,
watch Fire and he's
yeah,
doing like the bedroom scene, he's pouring salt on the girl. It becomes hilarious to me. I
yeah,
can't. It's just something sick in me from from absorbing so much horror entertainment my entire life that I find comedy in it, and a lot of other people do too. I kind of relate it to the reaction that little boys had in my day to Garbage Pail Kids. Like they were just gross and nasty, and there's something about that that draws you to it.
yeah,
So yeah, those are the differences between the two genres. So I definitely see myself as more of a splatterpunk author than an extreme
yeah.
author.
But I actually completely agree with you in the sense that I think that extreme horror is closer to laughter and it's closer to actually the equivalent of like a child splashing around in a muddy puddle and fighting
Right,
worms and like all of that stuff.
right, right.
Because
Yeah,
it's like it's playful. And I think that horror essentially is quite a playful thing. And I mean, even though
can be, yes.
you're exploring deeply kind of difficult subjects, and obviously that's why people like talking about like trigger warnings and stuff, which I mean I like trigger warnings, but I wouldn't impose them on anyone. But like I
Yeah,
think
I hate them myself. I hate them.
and that's totally fair. And I don't I think I kind of my perspective on it is just that I would have them in a book, but just be like, you don't need to fucking look at them because they are spoilers. I mean, but I totally,
That's why I will never put them in
they
a
are
book. I
spoilers.
understand some people need them, whatever, but again, it's not my responsibility. I'm here to tell the story, and I don't want to spoil it for the readers who are strong enough to just read it. So
No,
sorry.
I
It's
no,
just
I totally get that, and I think at your level, it's like people know what they're getting into when they read your book. So it's like
I
it's
think when a book is categorized as horror, you
yeah,
should just know that that anything goes and that you're getting into something that's going to scare and disgust and freak you out because it's supposed to. It's
yeah,
horror.
yeah,
So when people will complain that they were triggered by something in a horror book, I think that's just batshit and ridiculous,
yeah,
personally. So if you want trigger warnings with my books, talk to people who have read them if it's that important to you.
yeah.
but I'm not gonna ever list them in a book.
No, and that's fair enough. And I think, but I think in the sense that horror, it's a church, if I could call it that, for all people. I think, and I think there's something for everyone. And yeah, of course, there are resources out there. If everyone should do their own research when they're going into horror. But what I was kind of going on to say was that I think, like, which is linked to this, is that this kind of playfulness about exploring the darker recesses of life,
Sure.
that is, people would mislabel that as being, yeah, sick or something like that, but it's
Yeah.
actually like, no, it's maximum curiosity, which is a
Yeah.
very childlike quality. I think a lot of people hide from that because they're scared of the truth, and I think people in
Right.
horror probably aren't. They might have been through things in their life which make them see the world for what it is, or for whatever reason they're kind of, but like, what's your stance on like curiosity and just like pushing the boundaries and kind of really getting stuck in there? And yeah.
Yeah, with my stuff, I always would consider it more transgressive
Yeah.
in that it's covering topics that people don't want to talk about normally.
Yeah.
And like I want to break taboos,
Yeah.
and I want to go into stuff where they're like, you can't write about that. I'm like, fuck you, watch me. Um, you know, uh, and it's worked.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't want to be just shocking for the sake of shock. I want there to be a message or a good story there. And I think that's why Gone to See the Riverman has resonated with so many
Mm.
readers, is because it's extreme, the type of splatterpunk horror that just haunts you, that stays with you days after you've read it. That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I don't want to just make you go, ah, gross, like the moment you read it and then forget about it later. I want it to be something that gets under your skin and
Mm.
your thoughts. Um, so but yeah, as far as like exploration, um yeah, I set any real boundaries for myself at all. You can write about anything. It's all context. It's how you write about it. Um so anyway,
No, no,
I
sure.
hope that answered your question. I'm
No,
not
no,
sure if I
no, it definitely, no, it did. I think, because I think, no, it's right. That idea of like that lingering dread. My favorite horror books are definitely the ones where sometimes I don't even know that it's going to affect me a week later. Like, I've read a few books where even at the end, I'm like, what? And then I realize that I can remember it 2 years later and go,
right,
that image is there in my brain.
right,
I can't
right.
get rid of it. And that's the stuff. I think that's probably for me the equivalent of the jump scare, but like an
Yeah.
effective jump scare. It's not, but books are slightly slower. They're more kind of, it's that idea. And I want to move on to this, but like this idea of making a film in your head and you cast the characters, and
Oh yeah,
you're
yeah,
the
yeah.
director, and I'm the viewer.
But it is like
Yeah.
a shared it's a shared hallucination with the
Yeah.
writer reader, because you want a writer should begin the descriptions and the reader should complete them.
Mm.
Like if you're right, like you don't need to give every little detail, like the door in the room was painted blue, and like, but unless that's an important part of the
Yeah.
story, blue means something. You don't need that kind of detail. You let the reader fill out all those
Mm.
added details in their own mind, because you can describe your character, what they're like, what they look like, but the reader's still going to kind of picture in their own
Totally.
mind what they are. So yeah, it's a shared experience.
I like shared hallucination. That's very good. But talking of movies, like,
Mhm.
surely you've got to have a movie being made of one of your books. Like, I mean,
There has been discussion about them, and there was one that was in the works for a little bit, but I had to pull the project for reasons I won't go into.
yeah, yeah.
But no, there's definitely been interest in it. Nothing that I can really announce yet.
No, 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 sure.
But
But you'd obviously be. Would that be another dream to be
Oh,
fulfilled?
absolutely. I would
Yeah,
love it. But like in the instance of pulling some of
yeah.
the rights, and also there's been people who've wanted to make movies of my stuff, and I've turned them down, because I would rather have no movie than have a shitty movie. You
Hmm.
know, I would, because say I gave someone the rights to Gone to See the Riverman, my most popular work, and let them make a movie, and if it turns out to be a pile of shit, the odds of me getting to remake it good later are very, very low.
Hmm.
So I'd rather wait and be more confident in the production company and the director, than I was with some of these other
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that. involved in. So yeah, so I would, I definitely advise other writers to do the same thing. You don't just be eager to jump onto anything you make, anyone who's
Yeah.
interested in making a movie, because you could end up with a pile of crap,
Yeah.
and then that's the only shot that that story gets.
And how involved would you like to be in the production? Like, are you the kind of person who'd like to write the script and like be part of like the production team and all of that? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it depends on it. Apparently, like the bigger the bigger the company is, or the studio
Yeah.
is, the less likely you'll have any involvement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to like be on set at least for a day and
Oh, of
just
course. Yeah.
just see how it is. I would love to have a cameo in one of them as
Yeah.
a bartender in the background with one line or something like that. I would definitely enjoy that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, okay, great. And just my last kind of slightly broader question, is just this idea, and I think we've touched on it, like this idea that horror is for kind of outsiders in general. It might be a bit of a stereotype, but like what do you think about that idea that people who often exist on the kind of fringe kind of gravitate towards, it's a bit like metal as well, kind of find themselves in this big kind of family. We all share.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great that people can find each other and bond over things that they love,
Yeah.
horror, heavy metal, or whatever else, whatever you're into, to create a kind of community, particularly of the freaks, community of freaks,
Yeah.
uh, who have been ostracized by the rest of society for the entertainment that they enjoy,
Crazy.
which is a stupid thing to be isolated for. So no, I think that that's a wonderful thing. And I think the internet and
Yeah.
all of the conventions that we have now have made it much easier for people to stay connected that
Yeah,
way.
that's right. Well, I don't think I would be able to. In my personal life, I don't know anyone who's as into horror as me. Like, not even
Yeah,
close. Like, so, like, my wife will watch horror movies with me, but like I'm a nutter for it. So it's like it's so great
yeah,
to have the access to people online all around the world and feel like that friendship. Honestly, like
yeah.
you know,
But what's funny on top of that though is I've met many fans who are outside of that community.
yeah, I
Uh,
agree. Yeah,
to just like it boggles my mind, these people who love my work, but they're not really that into horror as a genre.
yeah,
Um,
that's great.
Yeah, yeah, because I'll see fans that are just like these young metalheads or whatever, who I'm like, oh, I identify with you, kid. I was you at one
Yeah,
point. Then I have like these normal housewives,
yeah,
who just like have three kids, and like their husband is a lawyer or
yeah,
whatever. It's like these quote unquote normal people,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so like you never know who the secret horror fan is,
Well, I think that's why I was saying earlier is I genuinely think that there's a perfect storm brewing in terms of broadening horror's appeal. And like you said, like Terrifier and all these things. And like horror movies are massively profitable. I don't
Sure.
personally see why horror fiction shouldn't be more, kind of popular considering the state of the world. And obviously, when the world gets churned up, people look for that kind of existential outlet. So,
It's funny, but it's funny how true that is. Yeah, you
yeah,
would think that in times of turmoil and
yeah,
violence and things like that, that people would want something light and fluffy to escape it.
rom-coms, yeah,
Yeah, but a lot of people, horror seems to do well in troubling times.
definitely.
And maybe it's because I think it's a different form of escapism. Um,
Well, it's because we don't feel like we have any control over the things which are constantly bombarding us, I think. And
right.
it's like you kind of want to vent that feeling of that kind of ugly feeling that you have in yourself that, let's be honest, we're just being put in our heads by whoever.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely, the
so
whole
it's
time.
exactly, so it's great to have that kind of feeling of control and ownership over like your fear and your anger. And I think that's probably why being a writer is such a powerful thing, because you get to go have this, have
Yeah.
that, be scared. And I think it's a service. I mean, I honestly think that horror is good for your mental health. Like I genuinely like would stand by that any day. And
Yeah.
I think it's probably scientifically true as well. I don't have any evidence for that.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. And that sensation of being scared, but also being safe
Yeah,
is just like it's a thrill. It's an adrenaline rush. It's fun. It's just like going on a roller
it
coaster. You're
is.
terrified, but but particularly with reading a book, the roller coaster could derail, but with a book, you're safe.
Just put it
With a
down.
horror movie,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. With a horror movie, you're safe because it's not real. The people that in it can't get to
Oh,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
But so you get scared, but at the same time, you don't have to really be afraid, you know?
No, no, I do know. Okay, great. I want to round it up with just some quick questions about what are you reading right now?
Hmm. Okay. So I'm revisiting some Charles Bukowski.
Ah,
He was a big influence on me when I was in my early 20s and I discovered his stuff. So for whatever reason, every once in a while I'll just pick up like I have a couple of books of his poems and just kind of revisit them. So I've been kind of revisiting some of his stuff recently.
so do you read outside of horror?
Oh
Quite
yeah.
are you widely read? So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm usually reading. I read a lot of nonfiction.
yeah.
So I'm usually reading nonfiction and a fiction book like at the same time. But I don't bounce around between the same the type of work. Like if I'm reading a fiction book, I'm sticking to that one. I'm not going to read two fiction books at the
Yeah,
same time.
I get that. I
You
get
know,
that. Yeah,
it's like a totally different mind space reading fiction and nonfiction.
totally.
Um, so yeah, right now for the fiction, it's Charles Bukowski, and I forget
What's
what the last nonfiction thing I was reading
what?
was. I forget.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. Oh, okay, and last question. What do you watch TV?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I don't have regular streaming. I mean, I don't have regular TV. I
Yeah,
just have
who does?
streaming, Hulu and Netflix. Yeah.
What are you
Uh,
watching?
um. Well, I watched a lot of the crazy documentaries, like the one your cousin made.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, I'm really into the train wreck show on Netflix. That's really good right now for
yes,
as documentaries go. And I watch a lot of old movies. You know, like I mentioned earlier, this past week has been my birthday week, and
yeah.
I really enjoy movies from like the second half of the 20th century. Those are my movies that I love. And
Hmm.
so I revisited a lot of movies this past weekend. I rewatched Glengarry Glen Ross and Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite westerns. Um, and I'm trying to think of what was the most recent newer movie I saw. Um, I don't know if it's the most recent, but Clown in a Cornfield.
Yes.
I went to the premiere.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler is the guy who wrote it. He's a friend of mine, and he invited me to the premiere, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, Highly recommend people check that out. The book is YA horror, which Adam excels
Yeah.
at. And But the movie they kind of upped the violence and gore, so it's very much an R-rated film. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a great film. And I think it's a great I guess what's so good about those YA horror books as well is that they get people into it and they get people just having fun and having a good
Yeah,
time. And I think
yeah.
that film just typifies it completely. All
And
right.
it really
Yeah.
and because it's based on a YA book and because Adam is so good at writing not just young people but writing young people from this generation.
Yeah.
What I love about it is I like when watching it I got this feeling I'm like this is this generation's Freddy Krueger, Jason, and all the stuff that I loved growing up.
Mm.
This same thing with Terrifier. Like that is this generation's Freddy Krueger.
Totally.
Or
And it doesn't matter that what critics think about it
no,
because
it doesn't matter at all. Yeah.
there's not going to be a horror fan that won't go and see that movie and not come out having
Right.
had a good time. Like so
Right.
that's
Including me, who is utterly sick of clown stuff.
yeah,
But when it's done differently, like Adam did, or when it's done to such an extreme level as the guy who made Terrifier,
yeah.
it transcends that the boredom of the trope and becomes something totally unique.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for talking to me, man. Like
I go, thank you, man. Like this has been great. It's been fun talking to you, and I appreciate all the insightful questions.
I don't know,
And yeah.
it's my pleasure. And next time you've got something coming out, I'll definitely be on to you again to get you back. So thank you so much.